Hey, it's Monday night. Another episode of the Looks Rare podcast live from our mom's basement. We have a shortened crew here tonight thanks to daylight savings, kind of screwed up our timing a little bit. But we have fearless producer Pep, and he always sells the top Deb, joining me, Scaly Nelson. And the big news, of course, is I'm still digesting it, to be honest, the Yuga Labs acquiring Larva Labs. Basically, the exact deal was they acquired the IP for, they meaning Yuga Labs, who obviously owns, who started Bored Ape Yacht Club and owns them as well as Mutants. They acquired the IP rights for the Meebits and for the CryptoPunks. The autoglyphs were excluded from the deal. They also acquired 423 CryptoPunks, so all but 20 of the remaining dev punks, and then 1711 Meebits, which was I guess all of the I don't know if it's all of the Meebits or almost all the Meebits that the devs were holding as well, because they retained 10%. Crazy news. I mean, there were rumors going out beforehand for several days. Meebits started pumping for some strange reason, right? That was a clue. And turns out now, obviously, some people knew about it. And there were rumors circulating. I had an inside person who wasn't involved with the deal, but just kind of has been someone that knows the space really well, who's a friend of mine who I won't name, but he told me it was happening based on a personal conversation he had with someone. And he's always right. Like I didn't doubt him, but at the same time, it was just so hard to believe. And then I shared it with you guys, and that was kind of, I think that was when you guys kind of realized 100% it was true, even though we still didn't really want to think it was true. And yeah, it's just crazy. I'm curious, Deb, what was like your very first gut reaction? I mean, we'll kind of get to like all the stages of reactions to it, but like your first gut reaction, what was it?
I thought it was really bad. Like for me, it's kind of like Coca-Cola acquiring Pepsi or Pepsi acquiring Coca-Cola. And the whole, for like months now, everyone's been talking about, well, basically the Bored Ape yacht crew, or even the punk guys. So I think it's like they both see each other as competitors, even though they aren't. And it feels like the Ape Swan, right? Because they ended up buying the Larva Lab brand, and they could do what they want right now with punks.
Yeah. What about you, Pep? What were your thoughts initially?
Um, yeah, it's kind of exciting, unexpected. I guess I'm in a different position to most of you guys in the crew because I don't have any punks, so I kind of had like a more, I guess, more of an objective standpoint than worrying about what it meant for my bags. Um, I think it's exciting. I think it's I don't know, it's kind of like a green shoot of life amongst all of the wreckage in the markets at the minute as well. So at least we know that there's still a higher level of interest and activity, maybe. But yeah, I didn't have any super strong feelings because I don't have skin in the game with owning punks. I mean, did you guys worry that? Did you first worry about yeah, the value of the punks you hold, or what was your first sort of concern? What were you worried about?
For me, the honestly, so to give some people context who may not know, I mean, punks for me are like by far the most special NFT that I own, and they were sort of my, not the first NFT I ever bought, but like the first NFT that I really became a member of the community. Well, it was really the second. The baseball one was the first one, which was really how I kind of got anointed into NFTs. But that one failed, and so then I stumbled across CryptoPunks, and that's when I kind of first like really felt success, but also just like a belonging, and like that was when I realized like NFTs are just amazing and so cool. And then I met so many people through CryptoPunks. It became my identity online. My Twitter, account went from like nothing to like a lot of people. And I think most NFT people, when they see me, they think of me as a CryptoPunk person, like first and foremost. And then of course, Deb, I met, when I met him, he had a CryptoPunk as his PFP. So um, it really like comes close to the heart. And like when I wake up in the morning and when I think of NFTs, like I almost always think of CryptoPunks, right? And so I had a lot of mixed feelings. Like my very first reaction was, "This is, yeah, like you said, Deb, like this is terrible. Like the apes won because there's sort of this rivalry." And then I also felt like kind of like you feel when you follow a band and they do really well, like no one else liked them but you, and then slowly but surely other people start liking them, and then they get huge, and then they get, bought by some record label, and then they come out with some kind of cheesy album, but it sells like $1 billion worth of say, record sales. I kind of had that kind of feeling, right? Like, well, there's nothing punk about this. Like they're owned by like the cheesiest, like, yeah, most successful, but like cheesiest brand out there that is known for like people to give out their seed phrases who are clueless, and all these celebrities, and like, in a lot of ways that like is the opposite of what CryptoPunks are all about. Like if you know some of the true OGs and CryptoPunks, like none of them give a fuck, right? Like they're almost all like libertarian. They're all like really nice people, to be honest, but like, and don't really care about money that much, oddly enough. Most of them don't. And so it was like this kind of punk vibe. But then all of a sudden, if you own like 10 or 15 or 100 crypto punks and they're all worth 300 grand each, it's like, well, Jesus, that's a lot of money. And what's funny is like, I can tell like a lot of these people haven't changed their life. Like they're the same people. And then you look at this kind of new wave. It's almost like the new rich versus, I guess, not really the old rich, but like these people who come in and like immediately buy apes, and then they skyrocket in price, and now they're talking about how much money they have and how awesome they are, and like real flashy online, and these celebrities are joining in. So it's like a very different feel. So that was kind of my first reaction was, fuck. Um, but then, it definitely changed. I'll talk about how it changed. It changed very quickly once I digested it. But that was definitely, just to be honest, that was my first reaction and how I felt about it.
It's quite interesting. I hadn't really thought about that dynamic because I'm not sort of deep punks community, but there must be, yeah, the early punk community must be very cypherpunk focused, like as slanted, because it's crypto people. It's like when I think back to the people that used to be altcoiners, sort of, and early Bitcoin people, they're weird. Like, I'll probably put myself into that category as well. Like early crypto people are a bit weird, and it's largely like that. Like you said, that libertarian slant, maybe somewhat anarchistic slant. And yeah, the new NFT people are just not that. Almost like the opposite in a lot of respects to that as well. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Then I started thinking about it differently, where yes, I'll admit, so I own 3 CryptoPunks now. I used to have as many as 12, but so it's still my biggest bag based on like total amount of money, compared to anything else I own. So I am definitely biased in that way, and of course I care about the value of them too. And I did see how in a lot of ways this could be really good for the value. And I think one mistake that a lot of people made who didn't like this deal, meaning people who own CryptoPunks or people who thought CryptoPunks were cool and like initially balked at this. I think the mistake you made is you're comparing the perfect reality of CryptoPunks, maybe how they were like a year ago, to now. And that's not the case. Like you have to look at the context. And what is the context? Well, Larva Labs has mismanaged things really badly over and over again. And I'll give you an example. Like when I first started, they were sort of involved in Discord, and they would occasionally come in and say stuff, and they would listen to our suggestions about the website, and they would like, little things like how to filter and what to search for and listing attributes and stuff like that, like listing total number of attributes. And they would make these changes, and that was cool. It was like, oh, they're listening to us and they're not sucking up to us, and they only occasionally, they're kind of mysterious, but every once in a while they'll pop in, and it's clear that they were listening to the chat. They just aren't, they're kind of shy, and I think in real life they're probably pretty damn shy, and maybe a little bit socially awkward and that kind of thing. And so it kind of went from that to like, well, then it started getting popular. And I remember the only time they ever addressed me personally was I made a guide for CryptoPunks, which was a Medium article that kind of talked about, like, if you've never heard of CryptoPunk and you stumble across it, like it's kind of overwhelming, you can read this guide in 10 minutes, and it kind of talks you through the whole process. Like, what are they? What are the traits? Why is a hoodie worth more than something else, even though it's not as rare? Stuff like that, kind of gets you into the community a little bit to really understand it. And so when I did that, it was just a fun thing to do, but it was more out of need because so many people were coming into the Discord every day. It was all of a sudden like I'd been there like a year and nobody was coming in, and all of a sudden all these people come in every day and they ask the same questions over and over again. So I kind of wanted to have a guide for them. So I did it, and everyone loved it. And I was kind of nervous, I was like, well, I haven't really done anything like for this community like this, but I'll just do it. And then people liked it and they thought it was cool. And at one point, Matt Pence came out and said, "Hey, at Skelly Nelson." Like I'll never forget. Like I woke up and Matt Pence had mentioned me in the Discord. I was like, "Whoa!" He said something to the effect of, "We'd like to put this on the website, link it on the website. Let us know if that's okay." And I kind of responded, "Oh, that's awesome. I'm not totally done with it. I want to polish it up a little better, and then I'll let you know." So then I like worked really hard and polished it up and made it better than I thought it was before. And then I tried to reach him again to say, "Hey, I'm totally stoked for you to do that now." And then he ghosted me, like never heard from him again.
Oh my god.
And yeah, which I didn't take it personally, but it was kind of lame. I was like, "Oh, that sucks. Like I worked really hard on this for you, and then you just kind of ghosted me." And I guarantee you, every single person like me in that community back then had a similar story where they didn't, if they ever mentioned you at all, they didn't follow up, and they're impossible to get in touch with. And I think everyone had that experience. Where compare that to a Discords now and these projects that are successful now, that would never happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the first sign, right? Well, the devs do something. No, the devs won't do anything. They just won't. And that was sort of like a cool thing about it. Well, you don't have to look for them. It's totally decentralized, right? Like everything's gonna be fine. But then, right, it wasn't fine. 4156 came out and really roasted them about the rights, because I think a lot of people wanted to do things with their punks now that apes were out, and they realized that was the licensing thing was important, and Larva Labs never really fully made a statement on it, and they still haven't really. It's kind of crazy. Well, now I guess they have, because Yuga Labs did it for them. And then other people like G Money. I just was reading on somebody's tweet, I forget who it was, talking about how G Money had obviously really wanted to use his ape for his brand, and he could never get them to sign off on it. So that gets really frustrating. Someone like G Money, who's probably done more for the US dollar value of punks than anyone,
Totally.
and they won't even, I don't know if they ever talked to him, but they certainly wouldn't allow him to use his ape, right? So I think people were pissed, and they kind of rightfully so. And so all of that is baked into this decision that happened. And then the floor price of punks dropped 50% from 120 down to 60. And it was because of 4156 and G Money and other people criticizing, and then other people realizing, what, this kind of sucks. Like Larva Labs is not stepping up to the plate, and they're not advancing this project. And this whole argument that they don't have to wasn't really panning out with the community, right? Like even though I sort of agree they didn't have to do anything, that wasn't really true, right? At least not in the short term. And so it sure sounds like in the background, the Larva Labs. Oh, and then the V1 thing was just a fucking fiasco. I don't know how they did that. I mean, they fucking sold their V1s to the community, and then after the fact, donated that money to charity as like, oh, whoops, we made a mistake. And it's like, well, why did you force those people to donate money to charity? You could have just donated it yourself. And so, yeah, that was a huge misstep. I think anyone who was still rooting for Larva Labs after they did that was like, fuck these guys, like that. What the hell?
Yeah, that
And I
was
think even they
super
realized like we don't
confusion,
know how to
wasn't
run
it?
we don't know how to run a company. Like we should stop doing this. And
Do you,
and I think good for them. They did realize that.
do you think that's when they started thinking about an exit, or do you think they were already thinking about an exit before that?
My guess is they had already been thinking about it. I don't think this happened that quickly, but what do you think, Deb?
I think it's like the more I think about it, right? It reminds me of a project I invested in back in 2017. It was called Aeon, and it's not really similar there, but the uh, the CEO of the project, basically, he was never involved. So the community was always active on Telegram and always giving them ideas what to do, blah blah blah. And the team would never come on, and they would never discuss or interact with us. In the end, they ended up ghosting and selling. I think they ended up selling it or giving it away to the community, which punks could have done. but it gave me the same vibe, and the whole reason why the guy from Aeon did that was just because they were, deep down they were incompetent. They didn't know how to run a crypto company, and I feel the same thing happened to like CryptoPunks. So like they were great with creating a a solid NFT project, but then going from where apes went from like 0 to like 100, they weren't able to deliver that aspect.
It's kind of a classic story in business, right? The person who is really good at inventing something new and really creative or clever or kind of thinking outside of the box is probably not the best person to run a big company, right? And deal with PR issues and HR issues and legal
Exactly.
issues and all that crap that you have to deal with when you're successful.
But do you think if they hired a marketing team, it's like this whole situation might have turned out differently?
Yeah, but I'll tell you why I'm actually bullish, and it is impossible for me to be unbiased. I realize that, and so I might be polishing a turd, but I think in reality I'm not. Like I really think that the more I think about it, and the more I read other smart people smarter than me talking about it, uh, you know the consensus is a few things. I mean, 10,000 a 10,000 number project is too small, right? We've talked about that before, where you can only reach so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is like a larger umbrella brand. And now they have punks, they have Meebits, so that's 30,000. They have mutants and apes, that's another 30,000. So now they have 60,000 of definitely the top, NFT projects out there. They might add more to that. They are really clever at designing new ways to add utility. They're really great about interacting with the community and marketing and growing the space. And I think the big question is going to be, can they protect? It's kind of like Chrysler owning Mercedes or something. It's like, can they protect that really high profile kind of brand? Or are they going to bring it down? Or are they going to, subjugate it to the apes and make the apes always be the best?
Well, see,
I
that's what
think
I'm
people,
scared of, Scaly. It's because when I reread the article, yes, it was bullish for punks because it seems like they're not going to touch it that much and they're just going to let it be. But what happens if punks end up, people see more interest in punks and the price starts rising? Are they going to try to like pump apes a bit more by trying, by giving them more utility or whatever it is, creating a whole new narrative around apes, right? Because they see punks pumping. Do you think that might be a factor later on?
it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if they owned, so they're going to own the IP rights to punks, but then if you own your punk, you have the commercial rights to your punk, right? So
Mhm.
same as apes. So I guess I don't know why they would be. I mean, I can see why the community might say, "Oh, yeah, we don't like this. We're getting overshadowed by the punks." If somehow the punks like really start taking off and eclipsing. I mean, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about floor price? Because that seems to be all anyone's focused on,
Yeah,
right?
I can talk about
Floor
floor.
price. So let's say the punk's floor goes to some crazy number and surpasses apes. Then would Yuga feel the need to do something to make apes, suddenly go back up? Yeah, maybe. I mean, it kind of seems like they're always going to be their baby. But you could also argue that a rising tide raises all ships, right? Like so,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to some degree, but I guess the counter argument is that who cares? Like they're going to make all of these do well,
For
and
sure.
Punk's had so much recent FUD and uncertainty that they kind of got rid of that part of it, And I had another story I was going to tell. Like so, a while back with my punk here, the 3D glasses 13178. I wanted to have Hackatow said they were going to do a commission for me, and I said, hey, I want to do one with this punk, and they said, we're artists and we don't want to step on any toes, and we're not like, can you guarantee that that's okay? As a piece of art, we don't want to copy it. And I said, you know what? Thanks so much for saying that. You're right. You're being super, high integrity. Like I get it. Let me try. And I tried my hardest to reach out to those fuckers and see if they would let me do it. And no one, it was impossible. And I know, like, Jesus Christ, like I know all these people involved with the project. I even, had a DM from him, like nothing, and that's so frustrating. And so that actually really pissed me off. And so now at least, something like that's not going to happen. And I can only imagine if that was just for me to do one little thing. Like imagine if you had this idea of making this whole brand or this whole comic book or this whole thing around the punks you owned, and then they wouldn't even give you a straight answer. It's kind of like the IRS not giving you a fucking answer. Like, well, do I have to pay tax or not? Like, just let me know one way or the other. And that part is super frustrating. And so I am glad that that's at least being answered. Like yes, Yuga isn't going to do anything with punks right away, except give full commercial rights which they immediately granted when they did this. So that part of it is actually really cool. And the other thing with the apes punks thing is, well, what did apes have on punks? They had the full commercial rights. That was really the only thing they really
Yeah,
had, and they don't have that. They don't have that advantage anymore. They're equal.
for sure. So what is it? So what exactly does this entail, Scaly? This whole commercial rights business? Could we just like start a business and use our punks or whatever and sell unlimited quantities of t-shirts or start a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all these things. There's an interesting thing I heard about the doodles, the coffee doodles. A bunch of them joined together, and they're
Mhm.
starting a coffee company, and they're using the coffee doodle heads as their brand. And
That's fantastic.
a small perk is the coffee doodle holders, which those things cost a ton of money now, but you get like free coffee from it for a year or something. But that's just sort of like a little perk. But I can see something like that, and that's sort of like a test project. But I can definitely see, corporation. Like, let's say I started a company, some other random company has nothing to do with crypto, even. And let's
Mhm.
say I wanted to use my 3178 as my brand. Before I couldn't do that. Now I can. And so I think corporations could do it. Small businesses could do it. You can make t-shirts and sweatshirts, but you can be way more creative than that. You can
Yeah.
do, who knows, all kinds of stuff. You can do, entertain, TV shows and comic books and, lots of other stuff that people haven't even tried yet. So I do think it'll be cool to open it up to all those opportunities.
You know what? I have a feeling like this is like in the coming years, this might be the next like hype cycle, right? You're going to see a bunch of people getting together and building up these interesting companies, and people are going to want. So let's say, for example, the coffee head doodles, if they become successful, let's say the I don't know, poop doodles or whatever, the one with like the poops on their head, if they start like a pet, it's like a pet business or whatever for like poop, you're gonna see you're gonna see a bunch of like different people trying to buy these NFTs in order to to try and start to try and start these groups in order to to try and create a successful business. So this might be like a pretty good narrative for me.
There's also like there's a certain amount of risk to it. So okay, you've got Scaly's punk, and you want to start a brand, and that's going to be part of your branding. That's going to be part of your logo, or it's going to be the main branding, or whatever.
Mhm.
You get to start this individual brand with its own reputation built up, but your rep still inextricably linked to the punks as well. So, say for example, the coffee head doodles, they're starting a coffee brand, but then this is not based on any kind of substance or fact, but imagine somewhere down the line there's a big disgrace around the founders of Doodles or someone else that has a brand linked to Doodles that does something horrendous, like something to do with kids or something to do with animals. Do you know what I mean? Something really bad.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't you, even though that wasn't your brand, is there now some kind of brand taint to your coffee head doodle business because the so and so doodles, one of them did something with kids? Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of you're exposing yourself to risk in some ways. So I get I get, yeah. I'm still trying to understand whether businesses should take on that kind of risk, or whether you're better off regardless of what rights you do or don't hold in your punk or your doodle or whatever it is that you've got. Is there still an argument to be made for not using that IP for a brand because of that sort of that broader risk to being exposed to everyone else that has anything to do with punks? Like, whilst it's not your punk and whilst it's nothing to do with you, it may well end up reflecting badly on your business later on. I'm not
I
sure.
think that's going to be a huge test. I think that's like a great, and I think we've touched on this in the past couple of episodes. and that's going to be a huge factor, man. And I can't wait to see if what happens. I'm sure something like that, like this, is going to happen, and it's going to be interesting to see how the project evolves from that.
Yeah, it's also interesting what Scaly said a moment ago. Like, the acquisition kind of cancelled out any bad faith that had been built up in the Punks brand. So any of this lack of communication, any missteps they made with the V1s and stuff. It's almost like they get the Punks brand itself gets a bit of a fresh start now, like a clean start, because Yuga in one motion have kind of cancelled out any bad rep that had started to have built up. It's just kind of reset. You kind of get to start the counter again on that stuff, which is cool. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I'm trying to think of an analogy that would apply, and I'm not coming up. I'm having trouble coming up with a great analogy that already exists for how all this is playing out. Like when you're talking about everyone kind of having their own little groups of a few punks here, a few punks there, and they start a company, and maybe one of them is a company that has a lot of controversial stances or things that piss people off, and then how does that affect all the other people that own punks? And it's interesting. Can you guys think? I'm trying to think of something in the real world where that applies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's
struggling
because it's a new frontier. Maybe that's why we can't think of a suitable analogy, because this is new shit and no one's been trying this stuff out before.
I mean, a brand like a Ferrari, let's say Ferrari or something, and so you have a TV show with a guy in a Ferrari, and Ferraris are rare enough where you see it and you notice it. It doesn't mean, and let's say the show's about some asshole who drives a Ferrari, like that doesn't really mean that. And so I'm not talking about Magnum PI. We all love Magnum PI, but some other person, I don't know, some villain who's like a fucking terrible person. It's not like you're gonna have that tarnish the brand, really. So, but I don't know if that's a very good analogy.
I totally agree. That's
just like as a brand, it just feels like a lot of extra risk I'd be shouldering for no reason. Not I don't know. There's with you guys, it's kind of different. You've built up a certain amount of reputation with your punks already. So if you wanted to parlay that into some kind of brand, I would understand using it, because there's a certain amount of kudos you've built up in those images and that avatar, that profile. Whereas if I was fresh, if I'm coming into the space and I'm like, right, I want to hijack some of this wave and tie my brand to this space in some way. It just seems like so much extra risk for not much extra reward. Like, logos are easy to design, fonts that like almost 10 a penny. Do you know what I mean? And I just worry that I think we're all expecting this to open the floodgates as far as a whole wave of brands and IP. Brands and stuff tied back to the IP of the punk, or tied back to the IP of these profile picture projects, and really, actually, like, it might be a really poor move for firms that are conscious of risk, cognizant of risk. I feel like I'm Dolly Downer on this one. Everyone else is super positive, and I'm like, I don't know.
No, you bring up a really good point. I mean, I was just thinking about it. I'm still digesting so much of this. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's another thing that's, well, you're speaking a little while ago, and it's interesting that expectations from the community, from collectors, from buyers have kind of changed. Like a year or two ago, it was kind of acceptable, and if not kind of expected, that the founders of projects like the Larva Labs founders, and they were expected to be, they're like one of us. They're another crypto head. They're another anon in a chat room that's a bit sort of reclusive and stuff. And the reason that Yuga can surpass and eclipse what they've done is because the expectations of the community change. We've gone from crypto and NFTs mostly being other crypto people, other people that are perpetually online and have no real expectations of feedback or interaction, to a place where now, like, the default baseline demand is, we expect this community, we expect these founders and to be totally engaged with the community. We expect them to be doing lots of stuff for their collectors and people in their Discord and stuff. And the whole expectation from the people that collect has shifted from, okay, we're just collecting these because they're cool, and to, oh, I've got this stake in this ecosystem or in this brand that I'm expecting like perks and bonuses and an increase in value and like Moya in the chat, I think that's how you pronounce it, is saying, do you not wish that inventors, not marketers, should win? Why should marketers win everything? And I think like over the last 6-12 months, the marketers are outpacing the sort of the sort of the more traditional or the more sort of crypto focused people because of that change in expectation.
But you know what, man? It's always been like that. Like even like when we weren't like if we weren't talking about NFTs, like back in the ICO hype cycle, right? A lot of the projects are actually really good and they didn't have good marketing. They all ended up dying, right? And the projects that had great marketing, they ended up surviving. I think it just comes with a space. You need like it's like you need good tech, you need a good community, and you need marketing. You need all three of those things in order to survive in this space, man. You just can't you just can't have good tech or good inventors. You know, as much as we want that to be true, it's just you just won't win unless you're really lucky.
The funny thing is, though, what if the Larva Labs guys just 6 months ago came out, like after Bored Apes came out, and they had time to think about it, maybe after a couple months after that. What if they just came out and said, "Look, we're going to give you guys full commercial rights, just like the Bored Apes do." You know, mic drop. You know, we're done.
Yeah.
It's kind of all they had to do.
It was simple. All they had to do was to be like more active and listen to the community, but they just didn't want to, I guess, man. Which is unfortunate.
I was just thinking, does that maybe because they always had one eye on the exit, perhaps, and that was like the crown jewels, if you like, that one of their main bargaining chips, perhaps, was the commercial rights. So maybe they were never likely to, whilst they were thinking about negotiating a sale or thinking about how they could close it out on a higher.
So do you think this started when they sold that alien punk for, was it like $11 million? I think.
I want to say it was 9 million, 11 million, whatever it was. Yeah.
I'm sure they never expected that. Yeah.
No, they didn't. And I think you're right, Pep. I think I can just imagine, right? Like it blew up pretty fast to something that they knew was cool and they kind of knew would be successful. They had no idea it would be this successful. How could they? And then when it really started gaining steam, I'm sure lots of people were in their ear like, "Hey, don't give away your rights. Don't give away your rights." That's, it's very Web2 thinking, right? It's like, that's all you have. You could sell that to Disney or you could sell it to whoever. Just don't sell it. And so then, and they probably had other people whispering in their ear like, "Hey, come on, it's crypto. You got to be cool. You got to be like the apes and give away your rights." And so I think they just fumbled it. I think they hired that agency and then they tried to figure out what to do. And they were also working on Meebits. And then, I can understand all that they didn't really feel comfortable just giving it away because they did want to they don't get those royalties, right? So they have 0% royalties. So they wanted to be able to make sure, money affects everyone. I don't blame them, right? Like there was so much money involved that they didn't want to make a mistake where they left most of it on the table. And then I think, and this actually transitions into exactly what I wanted to talk about next. So they find a buyer in Yuga, and I'm sure they had other suitors, and I don't know why exactly they picked them. But my other question is, I did the math, right? And there's no way Yuga has enough earned income that they're not already allocating to other things to buy them. There's no way. So then who are the other investors? Like there's either other investors or Larva Labs got some kind of revenue stream moving forward, but it seems like they wanted to just be out. So I'm kind of doubting that they get a revenue stream. So then that means there's other investors that came in. It wasn't just Yuga because there's not enough money on the table.
Are we able to like see who invested as well, or is it all confidential?
I haven't heard anything. I don't know. I'm not sure. But that's interesting to me, right? Like if you just do the back of the envelope math, there's no way that Yuga Labs had enough income from just the Bored Apes project and the mutants, even though it was in the 100. They might have 200 million total or something, but Larva Labs isn't going to sell for 200 million. I think it'd be more than that.
Yeah.
And then also they wouldn't give all of their every single penny to them, like they couldn't. So I mean, I don't know how much available cash Yuga Labs had, but it wasn't going to be, in my mind, enough to even come close to what the value of Larva Labs IP is, plus all those CryptoPunks and Meebits.
So were the rumors of A16Z investing in Yuga, were they confirmed? Was that like a confirmed investment, or was that always just kind of talk? That
I thought that was like a thing that was. I thought that was a confirmed thing, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
What does it say there?
this is
Wouldn't be
Wanna check
surprised,
that.
man.
like a month
I
ago.
wouldn't
This
be surprised at
article.
all.
Yeah.
Because that brings up a whole nother point, right? Like the whole thing about this whole idea that Yuga would buy punks just to submarine them, right? The way Facebook buys companies that compete with them just to fuck them over. I mean, they're not going to do that with other people's money, and they're not going to. That's something you do if you're a company worth, 100 billion, and you buy a $2 billion company. Okay, fine, but this is the other way around, right? Like Larva Labs was probably worth more than Bored Ape, Yacht Club. So they're not going to do that.
Mm. So you just want it out, man. They just didn't want to have the stress anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they probably are going to go buy a yacht, or probably buy some. They don't strike me as the yacht type. Like maybe buy some
Like a ranch.
or like a giant like play area that looks like Mario Brothers or something.
Probably.
So,
or a ranch. I don't know.
So they've retained autoglyphs. Do you think they're gonna?
Yeah.
Have they got more up their sleeve, creativity wise? Do you reckon they come with some more art, or is this it? Like,
no idea, but I mean, I could see a very kind of Hollywood type story where they go off into the sunset and don't do anything, and then 9 years later they come out with some secret project that they launch. How cool would that be?
Totally see that happening. But I wouldn't buy it, man. Or would I? I don't know.
What did you guys think about the whole insider trading thing too? So the Meebits were pumping for like a week beforehand, and then the NFT ethics account went back and looked, and they found a few people. One guy was the Twitter product development guy, Swarmy Bum, and he had bought quite a few Meebits, I believe. I want to say it was like, I don't know, at least 5 or 10, and sure seemed like the timing was odd. So then it brought, there's a big discussion about it. Like, is it insider trading? Because it's not really a security.
It's kind of inevitable, though. It's like, how are you going to do a deal of that magnitude without some people knowing about it? I saw Barrett Crimo had a post about it, and like, respect to him, a lot of time for that guy, and normally sort of agree with a lot of what he says. But like, people seem to be getting quite high and mighty about, oh, who knew and why did they know, and that's not fair. It's sort of but yeah, how are you going to do a deal of that size without anyone knowing? I don't think you can ever avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I did see his tweet, and I love him, and I did think I didn't fully agree. I mean, he said like we can do better, I think is what he said, but then the cynical part of me kind of said, oh come on, the space is that's just how it is, and that's real life, and even in real regulated securities, that's how it is, and so come on, like it wasn't that bad, like not that many Meebits were bought, and the floor went up a lot, and then it kind of went back down. So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't bother. Honestly, it didn't bother me that much.
No.
So is he talking more about that, or is he talking about like people that ended up launching punk projects like that same day as soon as that news was released?
No, I think he was specifically talking about people who front ran the news with trades that would benefit them. But then to be honest, you have to point towards the real crime would be buying them before anyone knew, and then selling them the day the floor was super high. And I don't know that anyone had sold; they just bought. And so I don't know. To me, that's not nearly as bad, right?
Yeah.
And we all do that. Like how funny was the pump of Wicked Craniums? So I saw somewhere in my Twitter feed a Wicked Cranium sold for 10 ETH. I'm like, what the fuck? Like those things haven't done anything in forever. I like the project, by the way. I think it's cool art and stuff. And I owned a few, or did I own a few? I can't even remember. I don't own any anymore. I think I bought and sold some. And so I was wondering, it seemed weird that happened, and then I looked at the activity, and there's quite a few sales the last couple of days. So I just tweeted. That's something I love about Twitter. I can just tweet out a question, and I always get the answer. So I just tweeted out, "What's going on with Wicked Craniums?" And a few people answered, "Oh, it's because of this Bored Ape picture that they sent out, and had this little mysterious picture in the background, and people are speculating that it was a Wicked Cranium, that they're going to buy Wicked Craniums." And so just based on that one picture, yeah, look at that pump. So we're looking at a graph, and it just went sky high last couple of days, the volume. And so it's just so funny how degen we all are. And then someone else
Wow.
posted the picture and said, "Look, like this doesn't even look like a wicked cranium. Like their shoulders are here, and the picture here has the shoulders down here. Like that's obviously not the same thing. It's just a fucking skeleton. Like what crypto project doesn't have skeletons? Like come on." And so I put
Never
down
say
my
that.
I put down my ledger, and I was like, okay, never mind.
That's the new wave is acquisition pumps. Like everyone's going to be pumped on
Yeah.
the rumor of acquisition.
So funny. Disney. Who's Disney buying? All right, who's Disney buying? There was a rumor that Disney was going to buy Doodles, and that seemed, of all the rumors out there, that seemed to make the most sense to me for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
So I have one Doodle. I have a rainbow puke, which I love, and it's pretty expensive. And my hope is that it'll pan out. I really like the project. Instead of buying a few floors, I bought that one. And so the Poopy, the head of the project, tweeted in someone's thread about that speculation. He said, "We're not looking to be bought. We're looking to buy other people. Or we're not looking to sell. We're looking to buy," I think is what he said. So he pretty much squashed that rumor. But I did like that response.
So do you guys see this new wave happening now with a bunch of these labs? So we have Chiru Labs, you have not Larva Labs anymore. You have Yuga Labs, you have all these labs. Do you think they're all gonna try to compete against one another with acquiring projects and just like trying to build like a whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it seems like the landscape has gotten to the point where you do have so many different projects out there, but you only have a few people that have really proven they can succeed here. Like Yuga Labs
Yeah.
is number one; they just killed it. So I do think it's kind of ripe for, and also the market's a little shaky, right? So
Yeah.
people are looking for. So if you have like a really creative project that maybe isn't being managed too well, and they want an exit, and then you have another project that's just run by these people with a really long vision, maybe big bank accounts, who are really business savvy. I can see, them coming together, right? Like they could say, "Well, look, we'll take your project off your hands and do something with it." And that wouldn't have happened 6 months ago or a year ago, right?
Mhm.
Because everything was so new and undeveloped. But now I can definitely see that happening more and more over the next few months. Yeah. So that it's acquisition fall. What the hell? I'm in Hawaii. I don't even know seasons. What is it like? Spring?
Spring.
Acquisition
Yeah, we're gonna be
spring.
spring soon. Yeah, in a couple of days actually. What are we
Acquisition
thinking?
spring.
Yeah.
JPEG summer. Acquisition spring.
Sell the right summer.
I think they're gonna be cool. I think we're gonna see the company that owns Doodles. I think they're called Doodle Labs. We're gonna see Chiru Labs, the Azuki guys. We're gonna see RTF, what is it called? Artifacts, and we're gonna see Yuga Labs all competing against one another. And it's gonna be super interesting to see that.
So
And
actually,
Yuga
Doodle
Labs
Lab,
obviously. Sorry.
Doodle Lab, surprisingly doesn't have anything to do with Doodles.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
confusing.
Oh,
I
does
always
it?
get that confused. Yeah, they are a different project. And
Oh
what
man.
did they?
Doodle
Yeah,
Labs
he's
is
looking.
like the it uses the art blocks generative engine, I think, to
Oh, right.
I've got a couple of these. I can't
What
think
was
the
the
first
one?
one.
Oh, Neogen Space Monkeys. They did. I have a
Yeah,
couple of those. Yeah,
yeah.
from Dalek. Shout out Dalek, OG artist. So, but I think you're right, Deb. I think these we're going to see more kind of umbrella companies, and underneath them are a bunch of different projects, as opposed to each project being rogue on its own. Because from an economy of scale, that doesn't make a lot of sense either, right? And
Yeah,
it's so hard to find developers and good talent. So one thing
exactly.
you add is, well, we have this many people, and we know we've worked with them, and they're great. So we can take your creativity and we can apply all of our resources to it and make it way better than if you try to do it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the basis for Artifact, right? With the Nike acquisition, like, what's the easiest and
Yes,
quickest way we can get a
buying the talent.
crypto team? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So
And that's
I mean, you could see more of those, like Larva Labs. Obviously, in this case, as far as we know, it was nothing to do with acquiring the founding team or a talent. So it's a different case. But you could certainly see that happening a bunch. Like if the Doodles guys got bought by Disney. I mean, you could imagine that the art is kind of a nice fit for Disney, and I'm sure you've got other reasons why you think that could be a viable or a feasible sort of acquisition. Not that it's happening, or even that there's a rumor for it happening, but that'd be a real motivator for Disney. Is shit, we need a handful of crypto devs, or we need people that really understand smart contracts. What's the easiest way to do that and acquire some nice IP at the same time? Okay, cool, doodle, let's get that. If you're so if you're the Doodles people, and you've got to acquire another project, which project would you acquire if you were the founders of Doodles, for example, and you were looking to acquire some IP that complements the shit you've already got? Which project would you try and acquire?
I would acquire Three Landers for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of similar. I was thinking maybe you go for something different. But,
oh yeah, makes sense.
But I don't know. That's a good question, and I think Doodles has big plans, and I'm not saying that on any kind of insider knowledge, but other than that, I've been sort of involved with teams that are, with some chats and stuff that have a lot of Doodles holders. But Poopy's hinted at the spaceship thing was sort of like a proof of concept and just the first step, and a lot of different ideas they had moving forward. And then South by Southwest actually just happened, and they had a exhibit there, which was pretty well received. And I think, it not that you should even do this, but if you look at the floor price, it definitely pumped a little bit with, I think it wasn't a coincidence. It happened to do with that. But I don't really, that's very short-sighted. Like, I don't really believe that you should look at that as a validation of a project, but it's more that you can see a little spike they had. But I just think that project, I feel super comfortable holding a high value Doodle right now and not wanting to sell it, because I just see the team, like if they fail, I think almost anyone's going to fail, and so you might as well have that one because they are just killing it. I really think they're like the number 2 or number 3 project right now. I mean, you could argue, I think they're definitely a top 5. In my opinion, they're like top 3 project.
Man, it kills me every time it's like hearing Doodles, because I was like, I used to message Evan quite a lot back in the day, right? In March and April.
Yeah.
And I remember him messaging me, telling me he's starting this project called Doodles. And I never researched it at all, man. It's fucking horrible, man. Thinking about it now, it's painful.
Did you ever have any?
Sorry?
Did you ever have any?
No, I never. I was looking at it at 1 ETH. I was planning on getting one, and just like flew away from me, man.
That's so funny because you're the one who, I think I DM'd you. I bought my first one at 5 ETH.
Yeah.
And I think I DM'd you, should I buy this? And you were just like, yes, immediately, like, do it. But it's so funny that you didn't take your own advice.
The thing, it's taxes, man. It scares me. It's like, to be honest, it really does.
Taxes with you, dude.
Because anytime I buy a NFT, I'm looking at, because my ETH average is really low, so I'm just like adding on extra costs, right? And it just wrecks me. So that's why it's like right now the price of ETH is near my ETH average. So I'm more okay with buying. But yeah, man.
I hear you. So, I was at, what state I was at then? I had sold my Punk for 130 ETH. So once I did that, I basically recycled all my ETH, if that makes sense. So all my ETH moving forward was at that cost basis, which was like $3,000 or something. So once you're at that point, you don't worry. But I get it. If your ETH cost basis is $200, every time you spend it, you got to pay taxes like crazy.
Wrecked, man.
My Bitcoin's like that because I don't ever spend Bitcoin. So if I ever, like for the rare Pepes, I don't really want to buy a rare Pepe because I'm basically paying all, like if I buy a rare Pepe for whatever 0.1 Bitcoin, I'm basically paying taxes on almost that entire amount of Bitcoin.
Savage.
So how would you play it? So let's say you built up a stack of, let's say, 500 ETH, right, throughout the years, and ETH reaches $10,000. Would you cash out all of your 500 ETH, or would you just do like 100 at a time, considering taxes and everything?
I don't fully get your question. Like, I mean, I don't think you should take taxes. are you saying that you would sell it because you just want to cash all of it out?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was talking to my to the guy from Token Tax, and he was telling me it's better to like cash out everything at once, more so than little by little, because of tax purposes, because of the capital gains, and it messes up your average for ETH.
Oh, because you guys have that average thing in Canada. Right?
Yeah.
I don't really know how that works.
It's a whole dilemma that I'm like struggling with right now. Say, do you cash out everything, or do you just do like little by little?
I suppose it depends what. Have you got any capital losses to offset as well? Does that work?
So I have a funny story. I'm selling my house right now, and I'm actually pretty stoked because the market is crazy, and so I'm gonna do well on it. And I was I was looking up what is the tax on Hawaii, like sale, like what do you pay taxes on a home? And it's capital gains, but I mean, I'm like, is there some other tax? And then today I was googling it. I was on the airplane, and it was saying, oh, you have to pay 7.5% sales tax on top on the fucking sticker price of the house.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I just lost like a shit ton of money just reading this. What the hell?
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, I read if you're an out of state resident. And I'm like, hell yes, I'm rich again. And
That's
then listen to this.
amazing.
So I moved into another house that my friend from high school bought, and he's a big crypto guy. So I pay my rent in crypto every month.
Nice.
Oh wow.
How funny
That's
is that? It's like
fantastic.
the first time I've had a real world use case other than buying NFTs.
So do you think we're gonna get to a point like that where we're gonna be able to like trade an NFT for a house or a car or whatever it is?
Not directly, but I think, for me, and I think for everyone, you guys as well, I'm sure I have in my mind like all the stuff that's in the crypto world and all the stuff that's out. And if the kind of like a layer two in a way, like if all the stuff can just stay there and go back and forth without ever having to come out of it, it's better,
Mhm.
right? So I do think over time we'll be able to keep, to do stuff with it. Like right now, obviously, if you want to buy anything real, you got to take it out. You got to use an exchange. I guess you could use a person, and like I've occasionally done that where you send someone money, you send someone crypto, and they Venmo you cash. I've done that a few times, but in general, you got to like use an exchange, right?
I have a question for you guys. What do you think about this whole ooh, there's a nice one. I'm buying this right now, man. How do you say it? I
MFR.
want to see
I call
exactly.
them MFers, yeah, motherfucker.
MFers. Ooh,
What's the floor on those right now? What made you suddenly
3.1.
want to get one? 3.1, yeah.
I think I'm
It's real
getting this one
volatile,
right now.
dude.
It's beautiful. Huh?
I just feel like the floor price has been anywhere from like 2 to 6 in the last month. It's kind of crazy. Let's see.
Like 0.24 a couple of days ago, weeks ago.
Which one? Which number are you looking at? I'll type it in here.
I'm looking at the cheapest one right now, which is 3.1, and it's 7109. It's a clean looking one.
Let's see.
I'm definitely buying this right
Ooh,
now.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a nice one. He's got the white headphones, white head, and cigarette.
Oh hell yeah! Hopefully somebody doesn't snipe it for me right
Nice.
now.
Well, listen, guys, I'm gonna run. It's getting late over here, but this is a good discussion. We might do it. I really wanted to hear other people's opinions as well, and because of the daylight savings, Zinc had to go to bed, and I think maybe So and Plum can join either. But maybe we'll do another one tomorrow night.
Yeah, quite
Definitely.
possible. Yeah, cool.
I'm down.
Nice, cool.
All right, you guys. Good night.
chat.
It was
Take
an
care.
awesome.
Bye bye bye.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one, guys. Okay. Bye bye.
Right now.